Welcome to Solutions with Courtney Anderson. I am Courtney Anderson. This is our show, and it is our 177th episode of Solutions with Courtney Anderson. This is one of the shows that is part of the Help Situation Spotlight series. And our Help Situation Spotlight series is a series of shows that is entirely generated by you, our community members. And it's where you reach out and share with me a suggestion, an issue, a concern. And I then do my best to try to come up with some potential solution sets and ideas for us to explore in the show. So specifically, this show is entitled, I am being subjected to the silent treatment from someone. How do I handle it? Help! I am being subjected to the silent treatment from someone. How do I handle it? And I always do mention that I'd ask you to leave any ratings or reviews for our show if you find something that could be potentially useful on iTunes or Stitcher or any other different source where you're accessing our show. I would also ask that you spread our show around on your social media. I know you know lots of awesome and amazing people, so go ahead and put your social media to use and link to our program and allow people to let you know what they think of it. And also, let me know what's on your mind. I think that's a reasonable request. Our topic is, help. I'm being subjected to the silent treatment from someone. How do I handle it? And I'm here asking and requesting that you reach out and let me know what's on your mind. I am not subjecting you to the silent treatment. No, quite the contrary. I'd love to hear from you. So come to CourtneyAnderson.com. It's our main website. It's where we've got all of our 177 shows. We have our blog. We also have our companion show to this. This is our audio, radio, talk show podcast. We have a video, television, talk show, podcast. And we've got articles, we've got links. We're going to be adding more webinars, seminars, and lots of other things. So please stop by. CourtneyAnderson.com also has an individual page that's dedicated just to this show, just to episode 177. And it's going to have the quotes that I read, links to any materials I reference. So I do, again, encourage you to stop by our show page. And while you're on CourtneyAnderson.com, please do support our sponsors. Again, no silent treatment here. I want to hear from you. And I also am going to ask you to engage in communicating and letting our sponsors and advertisers and any affiliates that we have linked to on the site know that you are part of our community by looking at their goods and services and purchasing anything that you think might be beneficial for you. So all of that is to say that this program is one that, as I was preparing some of the show research, I just got more and more motivated. I have to say here at the outset, as I try to be as transparent as I possibly can, reasonably, if I think it'll be helpful potentially. In this full disclaimer, I have been the recipient of the silent treatment on numerous occasions in my life, and so in my personal life, in work settings, and it is something that is not awesome. Let's explore. Okay, so here we are. Our question is, I'm being subjected to the silent treatment from someone. How do I handle it? The answer is you don't. Now I'm going to, of course, elaborate and try to give some context to this, but I'm going to try again as directly as I possibly can. You can't handle this. There's nothing you can do. And just to be clear that we know what we're talking about, the silent treatment is what it sounds like. It's where someone is treating you to silence. They completely shut down. They're not talking to you. They're not looking at you. They're not writing to you. They're not texting you. They're not hanging out with you. They are silent. Now, as I mentioned there when I made my sort of little anecdotal note that I've experienced this, I've been on the recipient end of it. It is, and I said it's not something I welcome. The issue, what is it? Why do people use it? What can we do about it? So let's get into it. Okay, so what is it? It's silence. There's a show link there. Go to our show page. You'll see a show link. I've got a link to a psychology site website, and according to that, it says that, quote, passive aggression is aggression by not doing. So passive aggression is aggression by not doing. And deliberately not communicating or giving someone the silent treatment is one of the more common forms of it. And passive aggression can be one tool in an arsenal of weapons that people use to manipulate and or abuse others. So let's just make sure we understand. So silent treatment is what it sounds like. People treat you with silence. So whatever it is that you would consider to be communication, verbal, visual, auditory, scent, something in writing, something electronic, a voice, anything, nothing. They're silence. And so the quote I just read was making the argument that this behavior, the silent treatment, it's a common form of passive aggression, and that's what it sounds like. Aggression is sort of we can think of something that's more I'm going to say it, violent in a way, and then passive is something where we actually appear that we're not. That we're the opposite of being aggressive, right? We're passive. We're not engaging in any type of behavior that could lead to conflict. But the reality is, if we combine those two to passive aggressive, it looks like we're not doing anything that's aggressive, but we actually are, right? It's an indirect way, and so this quote I just read you was saying that passive aggression and the silent treatment is an arsenal. It's a tool, right? And their arsenal of weapons that people use to manipulate and abuse others. So as we start out here asking the question, I'm being subjected to the silent treatment from someone. Again, it could be at work, it could be in your personal life, it could be in your family, it could be in your volunteer group, it could be in your social group. I don't care. It could be the dog park. Like, it's irrelevant, but it's an intentional. So we're not talking accidentally. Like, I think it's a silent treatment. And then I start asking you more questions, and it turns out you're talking about somebody who has some physical medical conditions, and they're unable to speak or to communicate with you. Then they're not giving you silent treatment. I'm talking about someone who's able to communicate with you in some manner. So, either speaking or writing or visually or behaviorally or something, and they're intentionally just make sure we're clear where we're going with the discussion. They're intentionally withholding the communication. Right? So they just choose not to. And so this argument here from that quote says that it's a weapon, right? It's a tool and it's a weapon. People are manipulating and abusing other people. Wow. Ooh. Okay. I did make my personal just sort of passing note that I have been on the receiving end of this, and it is really not something I would ever want to do again. Of course, the challenge is I don't have any control. So, what is it? Why do people do it? Well, what it is this weapon that people are now. Why are they using it? To manipulate and or abuse others. If you come to the again, visit CourtneyAnderson.com, our show page, episode 177, you'll see some other content from the Telegraph out of the UK, the United Kingdom. And so let's look at some of that quoted material. Okay. So we're still, talking about this, what it is and why they do it. Okay, so here this quote says the silent treatment is a passive aggressive action. Okay, so I have to interject. We're hearing this again over and over again. We're starting to get some consistency to the interpretation that the silent treatment, the intentional silent treatment, is some sort of passive aggressive behavior. All right. It says where a person feels bad but is unable to express themselves. Their being silent is never a silent act. It generates what the sulker wants. The sulker being the person who's giving you the silent treatment. Attention and the knowledge others are hurt. Plus a feeling of power from creating uncertainty over how long the silence will last. Some therapists see this kind of social rejection purely as pure communication. Others are more concerned by it, viewing it as a form of control or even abuse. Again, consistency. Consistency in that it's passive aggressive behavior, and consistency in that it is either, in a generous interpretation, just poor communication, or that it may actually constitute this control or abuse. And then our first resource said that it was manipulation or abuse. So again, there's consistency there. Okay, so what it is the person intentionally is silent. Why are they silent? Because they have attention when they do this, and they also have the knowledge that they're hurting you. That's why we said it's aggressive, remember? Now, it's a passive way of being aggressive. They're not screaming and yelling at you and calling you an idiot and telling you they're the stupidest person they've ever worked with in their life, and you're so dumb you shouldn't even be allowed to breathe. They're not yelling and screaming that at you. They're totally silent. But through that silence, they are getting attention, right? Silence is deafening. And they're getting the knowledge that they're hurting you. So that's why I'm interpreting, of course, my own, that first psychology quote I read, you talked about it being an arsenal of a weapon. It's a weapon. It's working. So what is it? It's being silent. Why do they do it? Because it works. What does it work in terms of outcome? What is it working? What is it doing? When I say it works, what does it mean? It means it got your attention, A, and B, it's hurting you. And they're also in control. So I'm still on that same UK resource, the Telegraph. Okay, so it goes on to say, so it talks a little bit about, where does someone get this arsenal of a weapon, right? It might be from their family of origin, it might be environmental, we don't, whatever. But we're talking about this adult to adult, right? So you don't really know where they got it. Maybe you work with them, you have no clue all their history and their backstory. Maybe you're in a personal social relationship with them. You still weren't there with them from birth. Experiencing their life along with them as their family members or people they grew up with. You just met them at some point, and so there's still stuff that happened in their lives that you weren't there for. Okay. So the article from the UK goes on to say, whether they have learned this in the past or present, if they repeatedly engage in this behavior as an adult, this is something they are making a deliberate choice to do. Even if they feel like they have no control over their feelings or actions. Let's stop here for a second. I'm going to ask two things that I noted on the show episode page. The first one is, how much are you invested in this person, and how much are you invested in the relationship is the second question, because that's really important. Especially for these things that are work related. So it's your peer. It's somebody who works in your department. They're giving you silent treatment. If you are not that invested in the person, meaning other than the fact that you met them at that job just because they were at the same job you are, but you didn't know them before then, you don't have any interest with them, you don't have any particular affection or personal relationship with them, that is really important in answering what your next step should be. The second question is, how invested are you in the relationship? Right? If you say, well, the only relationship is that I work on that same floor of the office building they do, that's all the relationship is. So you're not invested in the relationship. It was just coincidental that they work in the same place you did. And if you're not invested in the person, you don't harbor any ill will toward them. You don't anything horrible to befall them, or some natural disaster or something. But you're not you don't know them. You didn't know them before this. You're not thinking about them beyond the fact that this conflict is going on with the silent treatment. Then you don't. Again, you're not you don't want to do anything to hurt them or cause them harm, but you're not invested in them. So you don't really know anything that happened with them, growing up, or their outside. You don't even know anything about their outside work life, right? You don't know them. You never hung out with them. You don't know them personally. They've never been to your place. You don't know anything about their living situation or their, anything. So if you're not invested in the relationship, it's just the relationship only exists because you randomly were in the same physical office, and you're not really invested in them. Again, you don't want to hurt them, but you met them at this place, there is no relationship beyond that you were working in the same department, then you need to understand that the reason they're doing this is for attention and to hurt you. It's a weapon, right? It's manipulating and abusing you. So you're not invested in the relationship and you're not invested in them other than, just general, we don't want anything bad to happen to humans. So what is there for you to do? Acknowledge the silent treatment, meaning literally just think to yourself, yep, they're being silent, and it's not an accident. So they haven't been in some sort of some sort of medical situation, or they're in a coma or something, and that's why they're giving you a silent treatment. They can communicate with other people. They're just intentionally giving you silent treatment. Fine, accept it, acknowledge it, or acknowledge it that it's the silent treatment, and then accept it that they're doing it intentionally, and then just fine. There wasn't a relationship really that you were invested in, and you don't particularly have any interest in them beyond just sort of a general, hope for, good for all of humanity. So ignore it. Go to the show notes. So specifically talking about silent treatment at work. Now, we've done many programs about abuse at work, bullies at work, frenemies at work, friend/enemy, jealous people at work, and we'll keep talking about all of that because it's one of the core issues when we talk about practicing the joyful art of business. It's something that prevents people sometimes from surpassing their goals, which is another one of our core issues, and it definitely is one of the very important issues that I address as the workplace relationship expert, which just means I focus on relationships between people at work. All right, so go down and you'll see a Psychology Today show page link. And this is talking specifically about the silent treatment at work. Okay, so let's just take for a moment. So we've been talking about silent treatment in general. Let's specifically look at the silent treatment at work. All right, so here's a quote. The silent treatment. Often a bully and his or her inner circle will ostracize victims to the extent of completely ignoring them, refusing to even acknowledge their presence. In other instances, the bullies will stop talking when the victim enters the room, but perhaps continue talking in hushed tones with furtive looks at the victim, giggling and or making disapproving grunts. The same kind of tactics used in the schoolyard. This is literally about workplace bullying, and talking about one of the tactics workplace bullies use is a silent treatment. If the answers to the questions are, how invested are you in the relationship and how invested are you in the person, are not really or not at all, then you recognize this for what it is. It's bullying. And it doesn't matter whether you were, 7 years old or 70 years old or anywhere, in between. It's the same behavior. So if you were a little kid and they were at school and they were doing this, what are you going to do? Well, maybe you're in a safe environment and you tell an adult, right? Maybe you are in a safe environment and you have the communication and confidence skills to make them understand that you're aware of what's happening, right? And that it's not, going to change anything at all for you. And it's the same thing at work. If you're there and they're ignoring you, they're silent, they go silent when you walk in the room, they're whispering and all this kind of stuff. It's the same dynamic. How do you deal with a human who's trying to manipulate and abuse you? Well, you deny them that opportunity. You're in charge of what? You. Now, you're not in charge of them. That's why I already said, how do you handle the person who's giving you silent treatment? You don't. So that's their choice. Why? Because they're in charge of themselves. And these are voluntary actions. These are choices. They want to do this. And why are they doing it? For attention, to cause pain. So take both of those away. They'll still give you the silent treatment, but you don't care about the relationship. There isn't one, or you really, beyond before the silent treatment when you pass each other at work and, hi, how are you? That was it. And you don't know anything about them. You're not invested in them beyond. You're just trying to have, good days at work. Then honestly, the fact that they decided that they're going to manipulate and abuse you is their choice, but you're not going to give them that option. It's done. Meaning what? They can give you the silent treatment, but you have got to disengage. You have to get to the point as quickly as possible. You don't care. And part of the reason that you can get there quickly is you ask yourself, what's the relationship I have with this person? Nothing. They worked on that floor. All right, fine. What am I invested in this person? Beyond the fact, again, that I, have a general wish of goodwill for, all humans. Theoretically, some humans do horrible things, and so I might, want them to have, justice or something of that nature. But in general, I'm not going to do harm to another person. So it's done. If that's what they've decided to do, then you're going to take away their ability to control you because you're not going to be controlled. They can sit around whispering and giggling and being silent, and if you're not A, there, or B, giving them a reaction, then it's done. All they want to do is hurt you. Then don't let it hurt you. It's easy to not let it hurt you when you remember they don't matter. They don't matter because you don't have a relationship. You're not invested in them. They're not invested in you. Fine. They don't like you. Well, that's the majority of people on the planet don't like you. Let me be more specific. The majority of people on the planet don't know you exist, right? Somewhere around 7 billion people on the planet. Overwhelmingly, the majority of people on the planet have not a clue that you or I exist at all, and that's normal and fine and healthy. There's a very tiny percentage of people that recognize that we exist, whatever. Within that group, there's going to be the super important people, the most important people in our life that are part of our community of caring. I've mentioned this in other programs. Those are the people who truly care about us. They want the best for us. They care about us. They really, truly, deeply like and even love us and respect us. And the whole way I know this is that I ask, if my happiness is their happiness, right, then they're in my community of caring. If my unhappiness is their unhappiness, they're in my community of caring. You know that somebody who gave you the silent treatment is not in your community of caring because they're making you unhappy intentionally. And it fails the test. The test is my happiness is their happiness. Okay, well, but they're sitting there right now and they're hurting me. So they clearly failed the test that they're not in my community of caring, which now means that they're just sort of some of those people that might have some knowledge I exist, sort of. They probably not even know your whole full name. Maybe they just know, your face or your first name, and maybe they know your first name and last name and that you work on that building. They don't know anything about you. So, fine. They're in the majority of people who know you who aren't in your community of caring. They're just aware of your existence. That's totally fine. That's life. Move on. The best thing you do, of course, is go to your community of caring and share this with them. This is the pain. This is the hurt. The community of caring, oh my goodness. My happiness, your happiness. So you're unhappy, I'm unhappy. And that's, they're listening, they're nurturing, they're supporting, they're talking it out with you. They're asking for solutions. They're telling you, I'm here for you. What can I do? How can I help? They're helping you come up with ideas. Can we maybe get to a different department? What can we do to help alleviate this obstacle? And take away the person's power. Remember, the person is using this to control you. Then don't let it. How do you do that? You control you. Now, of course, with workplace silent treatment actually might be easier in some instances. If you are deeply invested in the relationship and the person, though, then your calculation changes. So let's say it's at work and it's the person at work who hired you, a long time ago, and the person who was your mentor, the person who helped you have the confidence and believe in yourself to apply for the new positions and promotions. It's the person you go to with your fears about your career, with your requests for guidance. It's the person you look up to. It's the person who you most trust. It's the person you spend, they've come to your personal life events and celebrations, and they've known about the things you deal with, and you've been there for theirs, right? And so this is not the same as just that random person who's in the same department. Now the problem is when you ask the question, how much are you invested in the person? You're going to say, like, a lot, because it's been your mentor, it's been somebody that you look up to, it's been somebody that you respect, it's been somebody who their approval and their guidance and feedback has meant so much to you. If I ask you how much are you invest in a relationship, you're going to tell me they're the most important professional relationship you've ever had, right? Now you have a totally different analysis because we're still dealing with silent treatment. It's intentional. Remember, why are they doing this? For attention and knowing that it hurts you. Remember, it's to manipulate, which is a form of control, and abuse you. That's why they're doing it. Now I'm going to add this, which is from the quote from the UK the Telegraph that I was reading earlier. Okay, so it's talking about silent treatment. It says, even if they feel like they have no control over their feelings or actions, and they're talking about why, the person is making a deliberate choice, right? They're making a deliberate choice to do this. It says it's particularly important to remember. Remember what? That they're making a deliberate choice to do the silent treatment to you, okay? It's particularly important to remember that they're making a choice to do the silent treatment to you. If you are prone to try and fix things in the relationship, or if you feel you have done something to cause them to withdraw. Now, this only will apply when you are invested in the person and you're invested in a relationship. When it's just sort of that random person that you work with at the office, you really don't, when you ask the two questions, how invested am I in a personal relationship, you're like, nah, not really. So then the fact that they're trying to, stand around doing this abusive, controlling thing to hurt you, you don't really, it's not going to hurt you because you're not even invested in them or relationship. The challenge, though, if it's your number one mentor, it's the person that's been the closest to you, that you share all your fears with, it's the person that you look up to, it's the person whose approval and guidance and means everything to you. Well, now all of a sudden, the whole thing changes, and this is where you're more likely to get the situation where the person who's the person who's the recipient of the silent treatment actually thinks they can A, fix it, and B, thinks that they're the one that caused it. Now let's repudiate and refute both of these. You don't cause it because you don't control the other person. If they speak or don't speak, if they look at you or don't look at you, if they write to you or don't write to you, they control that. That's why this is such an effective tool, right? They control it, and they're exercising their ability over their and domain over their own, body. Okay. Now, the fact that they're doing that for the purpose of causing you pain and controlling and manipulating and abusing you, that's kind of the issue. So are you able to fix this? No. That's why when I asked at the very beginning, we said, how do I handle this, right? We said, help, I'm being subjected to the silent treatment from someone. How do I handle it? And then I already said a while ago, you don't. There's nothing for you to handle because you don't have anything to do with this. This is them. It's like asking me, how do you handle them breathing? How do you handle their heart pumping? What do you mean? You don't. They do. Now, there might be an emergency where maybe you're trying to help them get medical care or trying to keep them breathing or something until an ambulance comes or something, but you're not in charge of that. They're in charge of it. It's their domain, their physical body. So can you fix this? No, because you can't cause it. You have literally no relationship to the silent treatment other than the fact that they're deploying it in your direction. That's the only thing that it relates to you. Again, it's like them breathing or them drinking water. They're doing that. And so you can't cause it and you can't stop it. You can't fix it. You can't do anything. It's their choice. It's very difficult and extra painful when you are so invested in the person and the relationship, right? You look up to them, you care about them, you respect them. They mean so much to you. They're an important part of your life. They're someone who maybe you had in your community of caring. They may even be the person you thought you were the most close to in your community of caring. Maybe they were the closest person in your world. Maybe they were your best friend. Maybe they're your most trusted confidant. And now they're doing this. And we want to go to these ideas and think that's something to do with us. It has nothing to do with us. So it refutes both of these issues. We can't fix it because we didn't cause it and we had nothing to do with it. And we didn't have anything to cause. We didn't do anything. Oh, they're just giving me a silent treatment because I talk too much. They're giving me the silent treatment because I ask so many dumb questions. They're giving me the silent treatment because I nag them too much. They're giving me the silent, stop. We've talked about this in other programs. Why do people do what they do? Because they want to and they're allowed to. I educate on that. I train on that. I build entire programs and seminars around that because yes, and I'm coming from a behavioral conditioning perspective, but yes, they did that. They chose to. You can't control any of it other than whether or not you permit them to do that to you. That's the only part. You can, are they going to be able to control me? No, I'm going to remove myself from their control. But them actually being aggressive, whether it's passive aggressive or aggressive, whether they're screaming and yelling at you or giving you silent treatment, none of that is anything you control. And I get very fired up, when we talk about this in the other programs because it relates to that very disturbed and distorted psychological and emotional setup where someone who's physically being abused by someone, right, who's being beaten, will then say, well, they beat me up because I talked too much, or I nagged them, or I kept bugging them and asking them questions, or I made it, I knew they were in a bad mood, and they asked me to be quiet and I wouldn't, and now that's why they beat me up and tried to kill me or whatever. No, it isn't. They beat you up and tried to kill you because that's what they chose to do with again their domain, what they control, their body. Now, why they controlled you to do that, something in childhood, something in their job, something in the environment, maybe a psychological problem or mental health challenge, lack of control, who knows the exact combination, but that's them. You're never responsible for somebody else hitting you. I'm assuming, of course, you didn't hit them first. I'm assuming that literally they're the aggressor. So you didn't cause it, you can't fix it. It had nothing to do with what you did. Because the healthy normal response is if you're talking too much is to say, oh, I've kind of have a little bit of headache. I'm going to go, somewhere where it's quiet. Just wanted to let you know that's why I'm going to go over there. It's just because I have a headache. Okay, fine. Or say to you, hey, I'm really not really feeling well. I just need a little bit of quiet. Is it okay if we just have some quiet time? Oh, okay, fine. You see where we're going with this? Continuing on with that telegraph quote, it's on the show page, right? Let's continue on. It says, in theory, dealing with this kind of behavior is simple. You disengage and carry on your life as normal. If they continue with this pattern of behavior, you may decide that you can manage by focusing on your own needs and ignoring their stonewalling until they decide to re-engage. Your focus is on your needs, confidence, and reactions. Everything else is down to them to fix. You can support them in that if you feel able, but ultimately the responsibility for any freezing out is theirs. I'm, of course, adding a lot of my own emphasis. In my personal life experience, the thing that makes it so painful and it hurts so much, obviously, is when I'm invested in the person and the relationship. And especially, of course, when they were someone who I believed to be in my community of caring. And then they violated everything. They violated the community caring test, which is my happiness is their happiness. And then they turned around and not even, one thing to say not support me in my happiness, but it's another thing to turn around and literally do something only to cause and inflict pain and hurt me. And there's that whole, when those type of situation happen, there's that entire time, which could be seconds or who knows how long it could last, where you're in denial, where you're thinking it's not even possible. This was somebody that I trusted, I invested, I cared in. What on earth? Really? It's disbelief. We must remind ourselves. We must. Of first the reality that it's their domain. It's their body. And it's their choice. There's some quotes on the show page from Purdue University. So go to the show page. Now this is really interesting because there's a couple of things. One, it talks a little bit, again, about the harm that can come from the silent treatment. And it says that people, this is a quote there, people may not realize the emotional or physical harm that is being done. And it says some purposely hurt others by not inviting them to a party or ignoring them at work. And others may not even realize they are ostracizing someone when they ignore a new temporary employee or a friend after a disagreement. Right? So the new temporary employee is someone that they might not even notice exists. Like we talked about earlier, the majority of people don't even know we exist. And now here again from Purdue, so go to the show page. The quote I'm reading now: ostracism, like the silent treatment and cold shoulder. So silent treatment is a form of ostracizing someone. Okay, so ostracism, like the silent treatment and cold shoulder, are very common for two reasons. First, they're powerful. And second, you can get away with them. If people are physically or verbally abusive, they can be punished. But it's hard to punish someone for not making eye contact or ignoring another person. If the person is confronted by asking, "Why are you not talking to me?" the person can easily deny the accusation. Did you understand the power of that? Which is one of the reasons it's so effective, right? So the person picks all their little arsenal of tools where they're going to manipulate and abuse other people, control them. And they pick this one because it's so useful. One, boom, done it, silent. It's powerful, right? Silence is deafening. And then here's one of the more insidious parts of this type of abuse and passive aggressive. So if you do go to them, right? Because the question in the show asked, how do I handle this, right? And I said, you don't. Now here's the challenge. If you made the error and you thought, oh, I'll go to them and I'll say to them, why are you not talking to me, right? Which is what a lot of people will have, a conclusion. They'll think, well, I'm getting silent treatment. I'll just go to them and I'll just, in a healthy way, I'll just confront them. I'll ask them, why are you treating me? You know what I mean? So here's the thing this is why it doesn't work. Okay. Now remember, why are they doing it? For some combination of attention and to manipulate and control and abuse you, right? So if you go to them and you ask them, why aren't you talking to me? First of all, what did you give them? Attention, which is one of the goals of why they did this. So you're giving them exactly what you want. You're rewarding them for the behavior. So now you're reinforcing it. They're going to more likely you're going to repeat it. So you just failed in trying to make things better. You're actually making things worse. The other thing is exactly what this Purdue quote says so well. You ask them, right? It says, if the person is confronted by asking, why are you not talking to me? The person can easily deny the accusation. And I have to say, in my personal experience, which is anecdotal, this is exactly what happens. So you think, and like I said, I can understand why you would think, oh, okay, well, I'll just ask them, right? Especially when it's a transition, when it's somebody who was in your community of caring, and now they're doing this. And again, you're in disbelief, you're in shock, you're confused, you're in denial. So you just ask them, thinking, well, maybe it's a misunderstanding, maybe I'm confused, whatever. Nope, you're not. You gave them the attention. Why aren't you talking to me? Which makes them so, at some level, that's what they wanted, and you just gave it to them. The other problem is that you ask them, why aren't you talking to me? And they are going to have the option, which is often exercised, at least in my experience, where they're going to say something along the lines of what was done here. The person denies it. And they say, what are you talking about? What do you mean I wasn't talking to you? Now, here you are, someone who's been intentionally manipulated, controlled, and abused. That's caused you emotional and physical harm. And now you go to the person who's abusing you and you give them attention, you reward them for it, and then you put yourself in a position where they're going to have the option. It's not accurate, it's not true, it's a lie. But they'll have the option to sit there and act like they don't know what you're talking about. What are you talking about? I'm not ignoring you. And then that makes you literally the victim of the abuse sit there and have to say things like, no, for 3 days you haven't talked to me. No, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't care if you then follow that up and say, hey, I have a video camera here at the office or in our home. I have video of you ignoring me for the whole 3 days. I'm going to sit here and watch the whole thing of you ignoring me. It doesn't matter. There was a lie to begin with. You understand? It's just a way to continue to degrade and humiliate and take your power away from you. I do want to mention this part of the Purdue article. It's there on the show page. It's not just humans. And I think this is really important because we talk a lot about us as humans. I try to mention that a lot because this isn't specific to any nationality or part of the planet or gender or age or anything. This is human. All our programs are about humans. Yet it's not even just that. We have to remember that sometimes we get very focused on only being talking about our species. So I like this from the Purdue article. Lions, and I'm reading the quote, lions, primates, wolves, and bees are just some of the animals that use ostracism as a punitive device or to make their groups stronger. Ostracism is present in the animal kingdom and is often used to increase a group's chance for survival by basically excluding the weakest link. For example, if a lion is hurt and holding the pride, that's the group of lions, up, then that lion may be pushed away. See, that's not even a human-centric situation. But this idea, I'm going to exclude you intentionally. I'm going to silent treatment, I'm going to no communication with you, and then I may even literally just physically abandon you. I've got a link on the show page to a Wall Street Journal article that was talking about the silent treatment, and it's talking about in personal relationships, mostly romantic or family. And the article is entitled How and Why to Ban a Silent Treatment from Your Relationship. I included that link. I don't necessarily know if it's going to be completely applicable outside of a spouse or a partner, but it can't hurt. So you can check that out. I did include also a link to a library in Canada And I really want to emphasize this. One of the reasons that the silent treatment is so effective is because it can lead to these erroneous conclusions where the person who's the victim of it is thinking, well, I must have caused it. How can I fix it? Without having our program where we emphatically just said, you're not. You have nothing to do with this. This is all their choice. It's all about them. Nothing to do with you. Now, you're the one that's the recipient of the abuse because you're the one that they're targeting. You can refuse to accept their silent treatment abuse by just disengaging. It's the only thing you can do. The reality, of course, is if it's somebody who's your partner, your spouse, your family member, your parent, your child, your boss, it is more challenging, right? You live in the same house with them or the same room with them, which also makes it more painful. That's why it's so effective. You have to decide. You really do have to decide. And this is one of the reasons that I said earlier that it's not awesome. And I obviously a bit of a euphemism, but at this point, when someone has deployed a weapon against you to abuse and control and manipulate you, even though it might have been someone that has never done this before, if it's someone that you care so much about, you have to think and remember that you're an entity and they're an entity. At some level, you have to preserve your own organism. So if this is literally the first time it's ever happened, it may have been some horrible aberration. It was somebody in your community caring. It happened once. You discussed it and they said, "Oh my gosh, you're right. I did this. It was passive aggressive. It was abusive, manipulative of me. I'm sorry." They might not use those words, but they'll say, "You're right. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done it. I won't do it again." And it never happens again. Then good. It was just an aberration. We all have those times. I have personally deployed the silent treatment when it's someone who I'm not in a relationship with. They don't work with me. They're not in my personal life. But maybe someone who wanted to be a part of those things, and I've no, we're not hiring, or no, I don't want to be socially hanging out, and then they get persistent with they won't take no for an answer, and so then you have to have silent treatment to show them that you're absolutely serious. Like, this is not you're not going to build a relationship with them at work or in a personal life or anything else. Like, I'm not and to help them understand that was an intention and a hope they had, but that it's not reciprocated, and then they'll eventually leave you alone. That's the only time I've deployed this. So it's not, to me, the same as what we're talking about, because we're talking about the silent treatment in these situations intended to hurt somebody who's already in your life. And so again, it's so insidious, right? And it's so cruel. And it's not this sort of one aberrant event that we're really talking about. What we're talking about is the repetitive pattern of this. And like anything else, and I've already shared in so many of our other programs, I talk about conditioning a lot, and that's because I think there's some validity to it. That's why I share. But if you reward someone for a behavior, then you're more likely going to see them repeat the behavior because it worked and they got what they wanted, and they also got a treat. And so if they wanted attention and to control and abuse you, and you gave them attention and you let them control and abuse you, and then they talk to you, right? So at some point, let's say they end. It could be 2 hours, 20 minutes. It could be 2 weeks. There's an article, one of the articles I was looking at for the show notes was giving an example, of somebody who had the silent treatment for 40 years. And they were married to somebody, and for 40 years silent treatment. I mean, this stuff there's no time limit, right? But the whole point is that that the victim is willing to accept two things. One, that they deserve being abused, so they keep letting themselves be abused, ignored, and marginalized and devalued. I mean, that's why being ignored in silence is so powerful, because it diminishes that you even exist as a person. It just wipes you out. It erases you. And whether you took it for 20 minutes or you took it for 20 years, there's the acquiescence in there that at some level the victim, okay, this is exactly what I'm worth, nothing. And that is so devastating. The other thing, of course, is the person, especially when it's repeated, the person may think, well, maybe it's only been 2 weeks this time, or 2 months, or 2 years, but they held out last time for like 4 years or 4 months, and then they talked to me again, and I was so happy when they talked to me. That is so abusive. You do not deserve this. And so here's the little bit from that Canadian library link that I thought did a good job of trying to express to you, if you have been in this silent treatment, that it's not funny. It's not something that's a little minor issue. It is a very powerful abusive and control technique. The consequences of it can literally be the obliteration of your sense of that you have any, that you're a person. So here's this final quote I'm going to address here. So here we go. Reading the quote. Silent treatment is one of the worst forms of emotional abuse possible. By not responding at all, the other person treats you like you don't exist. And you feel totally alone. You won't get rid of your loneliness by waiting it out, hoping your partner will start to talk to you. If your self-esteem depends on what someone decides to do for you, perhaps on a whim, then you're put where you're almost begging for feelings of self-worth. That's on a lower status than a family pet. A family pet may beg for food at the table, but its basic needs are usually provided in its own food bowl. So look at that. Just again, the power of this. This is why it's so effective. Right? You diminish the person's existence. And then the victim of that is begging. Why won't you talk to me? Which continues to lower them even more. While this other abuser is getting all that attention and knows it's 100% their choice. Right? When they decide, they'll acknowledge your existence. This is it's painful. We can think about, and we didn't touch on it in this program obviously, but think about what that does when an adult, a parent, a grandparent, a foster parent does this to a child, a young child. The destruction it creates. It's just I'm very upset and moved by this. So let's get back to the solution. We had some sources from different countries. We talked about at work. We talked about in a personal relationship, in a romantic relationship. It doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. This technique has nothing to do with us. It's not about us. These articles weren't written about you. They weren't written about me. They're written about this behavior. The person, of course, who's doing the silent treatment may be in their own form of pain. And of course, they're using these maladaptive and abusive ways to handle that. But you can say that for anybody who's an abuser. You must make your safety the first priority. You must get to a safe place away from the silent treatment. You have to. Once you're in the safe place, when you're able to reconstruct that you do exist, that you do have value, when you're able to engage with people who are not bent and focused on destroying literally the essence of you as an individual, then they'll talk to you. It might be that you'll say, well, that person hurt my feelings, or they weren't sensitive, or they made that joke, or whatever. That's one thing. You can work that out. It might be, hey, I've asked them sometimes to, pick up around the office, or I've asked them, in our family to, to not, put their shoes there. We can deal with that. But this thing where somebody erases us, we have to make our safety the first priority. We must get away and disengage. So if they're doing that, we don't know about it because we're not around them. We must remember and hold on to the fact that this is not anything to do with us. It is about them. If you are so invested in the person that even though you understood the relationship ended when they abused you and hurt you and turned on you and destroyed your identity and existence, you still, maybe in the future, maybe there's some emissary you can help communicate, because maybe they do need medical help, counseling, to try to help them in the pain they're with, as we would do for anyone who's like this. As an attorney, I handled many cases where someone was involved in, especially physical abuse, domestic abuse, and that person, of course, had issues that had impacted their lives. and had been part of that recipe that resulted in them physically abusing a family member or a close personal friend. And of course I understand wanting them to get that treatment and that help, but they have to do that individually away from you so you're safe. You see, we do exist. I'm here and you're here, and we are, unfortunately, if we run across someone who engages in this type of aggressive, it's passive aggressive, but it's aggression. We know what it is. We talked about the warning signs, talked about the behavior, talked about why they do it, talked about the fact that they choose, talked about we have nothing to do with it, we can't fix it, we didn't cause it, nothing to do with us. We talked about just how cruel it is. If it comes along our path, we must immediately recognize, right? And then we have to get out of that denial thing. It is happening. Yep, you're getting silent treatment. And we got to remove ourselves. Like I said, if it's an aberration, it happened once. Many times we all have, horrible things in life that we do, that bad things or bad times and mistakes. Then we can work through that if it's once. But you got a pattern, which means it's more than once. You got it. Your safety. It's time. It may have been time the first time to totally disengage, but definitely repeat. You got to go. You exist. Your ideas, your expression, your physical body, you matter. No one else has the power to erase us. It may feel like it, and like I said, I've experienced this. You're in it, it does feel like it. But they're just literally erasing you. But we are here in this show and this community because that's not what we choose. I am here and you are here. And we are aware now, we've talked about some of these things. We understand some of the errors in thinking that people can have where they think it might be related to them. It isn't, never is. We accept that that person has made those choices to use that weapon. That's okay. You don't retaliate. You can't retaliate against a silent treatment with silent treatment. That's ridiculous. Here's the thing. Again, if it's an aberration, the person acknowledges that and apologizes and changes their behavior and never happens again. Okay, we all have those really bad times and mistakes we make. But you have a situation where that person repeats it, and or it's so bad in terms of the duration or the intensity or the cruelty of it. You have to put your personal safety first. And of course, if you have any other people or pets or anything that's dependent on you, you must think about their welfare. This is not violence on. And what I mean is, just like if you said to me, well, this person, they choked me and they tried to throw me down the stairs and stab me with a knife. Your safety comes first. You got to go. Same thing. This type of behavior is similar, and in some ways it's worse because at least when someone's acknowledging you exist, they might be screaming at you and physically beating you, but at least you exist. This thing where they erase you and deny your existence is just it's incredibly powerful. Remember, this is not central to you and I. It's not about us at all. These are all these different random links, and you'll conduct your own research. There's nothing to do individually. This is just, it exists. Why people do this is their own combination of issues. We hope that they get help and they don't ever do this again. But we cannot let somebody abuse us and hurt us and put our existence and our lives in danger. And again, to me, it's been most painful when it's someone who we thought they were in our community of caring. But we are here, and even if we are, for a time, our only member in our community of caring, because we don't maybe have anyone else that we are communicating with, that's fine. I exist and you exist. And we're going to have to use our resources and, one, get to a safe place, and then two, make a commitment. Never again. No. If you've never experienced this and you're just listening to this thinking, is it really that bad? Conduct more of your own research, and then if it ever happened to you, which I hope it would never, you would learn, yeah, it really is. It's that destructive. It's very powerful. It's very, very powerful. Right? I had to just mention, as we close, that There's a lot of research coming out of the criminal justice systems in many nations or parts of the world. They've used what they call solitary confinement, where they just do what it sounds like. You put somebody by themselves, away from all humans, no communication. They don't exist, just them and the damage that it can cause to someone. It's not exactly the same, but I think it's a concept that's somewhat related to this idea of ostracism, and very powerful. So this isn't personal to us. It's nothing to do with us. We didn't cause it. It's not about us. Can't fix it. How do we handle it? We don't handle it. We're going to have to just make our safety and disengage. It's easier to disengage if we're not invested in the person in the relationship. It's incredibly difficult when we're invested in the personal relationship. I still may be invested in the person. I want the best for them. Hope they can get help and treatment and resources to stop doing this. But I can't sit there and let them destroy me with these weapons in the meantime. I must get to a safe place. Okay? And then the earliest sign of ostracism and silent treatment, the earliest, you reach out. Maybe it's misunderstanding. Were you not talking to me? No, I'm talking to you. I'm talking to you right now. You're talking about 3 minutes ago when I just walked by? Okay, so that's a misunderstanding. It's just 3 minutes. And then now you asked, why are you not talking to me? And I'm talking to you. Okay? But, it's not funny. When you read about people, decades in this pain, this silence, and this abuse, wow. So if it's happening, stop it. Disengage and get to a safe place. As that one resource I read from the UK, we talked about you're going to have to put your own needs, focus on your own needs. That means that your needs that you exist. And it's devastating when someone does this. It's devastating. It's painful. But if it's happening, it is happening. And you're going to have to get to a safe place. And make a commitment to yourself. Never again. No. That's not who we are. That's not how we're treated. And it's a healthy lesson to learn. Yep. We're still here. I'm here and you're here, and we are going to continue moving forward and surpass those goals. And continue to learn from this. And we ourselves are not ever going to do this. Again, I gave examples where you have to disengage with someone who's not in a relationship, who might have misunderstanding or unrequited feelings. But if you're in a relationship with somebody, you're mad at them, you're not going to do silent treatment. Yeah, I know you're mad, but don't do this. We are not this abuser. Just like we're not going to physically beat somebody up or do any of that. We're not this. So I know you're mad, but you can say to them, hey, I need a timeout. I'm going to go, sit somewhere quietly in my office if you're at work, or hey, if you're at home, I'm going to go in the other room, or go in the other side of this room or whatever, walk around outside. And you spoke to them. So you're already not doing the silent treatment. You say, I need a little bit of quiet. I need to just think or clear my head or get some air. That's fine. Okay. We all have, emotions that overwhelm us, but don't ever do this. We are not this person. This is not who we are. We are not this kind of abuser. So just tell them, hey, I need a timeout. I need a break. Okay, already fixed it. You're not a silent treatment person because you already talked to them. And, and then work through it with somebody. Communicate with them. They exist, and don't you dare try to erase another person's humanity. But we, you and I, and people in our community, we don't do things like this. We just had to mention it, though, because we do get emotional. Everybody has emotions when they're overwhelmed. And we're trying to think, I'm overwhelmed by my emotion. How do I respond? Okay, if you need a timeout, that's fine. You tell people, I need a timeout. Okay? That means right there, you're not doing silent treatment because you already told them. And then, whatever. I'm going to go outside or walk around or go inside or sit in the other room or look in that other side of this on the same room and, whatever. But you told them you're talking. So just, it's a heavy thing to talk about this type of abuse subject matter, but it's something certainly that, we have to address. And I just hope that this has been of service to you. So thank you. Thank you so much for being part of the program today.